I'm Talia Ricci. Tonight, a man is fighting for his life after a drive-by shooting near Schaumburg.
It's not a road rage incident. This is attempted murder, and our victim is lucky to be alive and he's recovering.
Police say a passenger fired 13 rounds at the man, leaving him critically injured. We'll have the latest on the investigation. Plus,
absolutely, I'm in favor of him staying on, serving the people of Toronto, because that's what I believe they want.
Details on a push to get John Tory to stay on as mayor as the city's budget process begins a crucial phase tomorrow. And
she is Mississauga. That's her.
Former Mississauga Mayor Hazel McCallion is being remembered as a force of nature and the city's most famous citizen. We'll hear why Hurricane Hazel was admired by so many. A 65-year-old man is in critical condition after being shot 13 times while walking his dog. York Regional Police are searching for 2 people responsible for the drive-by shooting. Dale Manukduk has the latest.
This was a cowardly act, a cowardly violent act against the victim, who was doing nothing more than enjoying the morning and walking his dog in the area for exercise.
That's how York Regional Police described what happened Sunday on Centre Street between Rebellion Way and Church Street. Around 8:40 a.m., they say a 65-year-old man was walking his dog when a car sped past him, to which he shook his head. That's when the driver turned around and drove at him.
The front passenger fired several times from a firearm at him, leaving him in critical condition and fighting for his life at this very moment. It's not a road rage incident. This is attempted murder, and our victim is lucky to be alive.
Today, police released video of the suspect vehicle, which they say fled west on Centre Street towards the main roads. Police said the vehicle is a white SUV, possibly a 4-door Lexus RX 350, and that the suspects may have been driving in the area prior to the shooting. This man believes he has video of the vehicle from a week ago and dropped it off to police.
Video of a white Lexus that matches the description of what the police are looking for on a different day, but at about 3 in the morning. And trying to break into vehicles. So whether it's related or not, that's for the police to determine.
The attack has shook people in Schaumburg, a small community of less than 3,000 people.
People are just they're getting out of hand. No respect for human life, no respect for each other.
We moved to the small town. We're expecting, less crime, and it's dangerous. I mean, it's happening everywhere. It could happen anywhere, but didn't expect it in a small town.
The shooter is described as a light brown-skinned tan male. Police are asking that anyone with information or video contact them. Dale Manukduk, CBC News, Schaumburg.
Technology that helps police spot motorists who haven't renewed their license plate is rolling out across the province. And according to OPP, it's proving to be extremely effective.
While we've been stopped here dealing with this driver, here's another one right now, another expired plate just came in, and it just keeps hitting and hitting and hitting.
Is called ALPR, or Automated License Plate Readers. In a video, Schmidt says the system flagged about 24 vehicles with expired license plates in just over 15 minutes. Schmidt is reminding motorists you can go online and renew your plate free of charge. ALPR can also help police identify suspended and unlicensed drivers, as well as drivers who have arrest warrants. Questions continue to swirl at City Hall about Mayor John Tory's future. And that comes as Council prepares to pass Toronto's 2023 budget tomorrow. As Municipal Affairs reporter Sean Jeffords tells us, the effort to convince him to stay on is growing.
When is John Tory stepping down as mayor? That key question looms large at City Hall, despite the mayor's abrupt resignation Friday. Tory dropped the bombshell that he had an affair with a former staffer and said he was quitting.
I've decided that I will step down as mayor.
But even Tory's key allies don't know when the mayor is leaving the city's top job. And Councillor John Burnside says he and others are trying to persuade him to stay on beyond tomorrow's pivotal budget vote.
The mayor hasn't officially resigned. He stated that was his intention, but he hasn't put any notification in that I'm aware of. And absolutely, I'm in favor of him staying on, serving the people of Toronto, because that's what I believe they want.
Now, clearly, Mayor Tory sticking around isn't only on the minds of his allies. Recordings of an online poll began to circulate on Twitter last night, asking city residents if they supported Tory remaining in the role. The mayor's office says they have nothing to do with the poll. The controversy over Tory's admission and resignation swirls as City Council prepares to debate and pass its budget. That $16 billion spending package was written by Tory.
He'd made a terrible mistake.
Councillor Paula Fletcher says she thinks it would be hard for Tory to undo his dramatic resignation beyond this week's meeting.
Well, I think he'd be very wounded for the rest of this term and not have the moral authority that he's had previously.
Certainly a lot of conversations are happening.
Councillor Josh Matlow cautioned Tory about using the meeting as a litmus test for his political future.
I just believe that the mayor would be wise to do what he really believes is right and not just sort of test the political waters over his decision.
I don't see why not.
Councillor Burnside says Tory's presence won't add any more tension to what's already a big day. That was always going to be there.
If anyone were to say, well, council's going to be crazy, they've never been to council. It's already crazy.
City Council will be the first time Tory has spoken publicly since his resignation on Friday. He's expected to defend his controversial spending plan and its funding hike for Toronto Police. Sean Jeffords, CBC News, Toronto.
Ahead of tomorrow's budget vote, some are raising concerns about where taxpayer dollars are going. CBC Toronto has learned that Toronto Police allocated a lot of money towards a podcast. Clara Pasica has the details.
Welcome to 24 Shades of Blue Missing Persons Edition. I'm your host, Andy O'Brien.
24 Shades of Blue, a Toronto Police podcast with a more than $300,000 price tag, a figure CBC Toronto obtained through a Freedom of Information request. The podcast aims to offer a behind-the-scenes look at policing, but its continuation comes at a time when other departments and organizations are being asked by the city to tighten their belts. It has some questioning if this is a good use of public funds.
And it just doesn't seem to make sense to me that at the very time when the Toronto Police are telling council and the public that they don't have enough funding for addressing violent crime, response time, and making sure that our roads are safe, that they would go and spend $300,000 on an outsourced contract to produce a podcast.
But the amount of money that they've spent on it seems totally outrageous, and they didn't do a good job. That podcast, I just searched. It's not listed on the major podcast registries. It doesn't show up on a Google search, so if it was intended to be accessible to the general public, it certainly isn't.
The podcast has a limited reach, 94,500 people, according to police. The contract to produce the podcast was sole sourced to Obi & Axe Inc., a company who makes shows for police, government agencies, and big brands.
Given their huge presence in the public, they ought to be using different media to communicate so that they are reaching into the diverse demographic of the city.
But the former Toronto Police Services Board Chair says police should have invited multiple companies to bid, ran pilot tests, and done more to prove the business case.
The Toronto Police Service does not appear to have followed all the usual processes.
Toronto Police declined an interview for the story, but did say in a statement that the contract with Obi & Axe fell within approved purchasing and procurement policies. Clara Pasica, CBC News, Toronto.
Trailblazer, icon, and someone who always put people first. Just some of the ways Hazel McCallion was remembered at her funeral today. The former longtime Mississauga mayor died late last month at the age of 101. Politicians of all stripes were on hand for today's service, and so were many members of the public. Greg Ross has the story.
Hazel McCallion made one last trek through the streets of Mississauga. Her casket taken in a procession from City Hall to the Paramount Fine Food Centre, where thousands were waiting to say goodbye to the woman many credit with building the city into what it is today.
She is Mississauga. That's her. The city wouldn't exist without her.
There are times where I look around Mississauga and I think, oh my gosh, like this, there used to be a farm like in so many areas, and she changed it, and she created a beautiful city for us as children and for them as children. So we're just very, very grateful.
Inside, a who's who of Canadian politics.
In those final moments, I did what any friend would.
An emotional Premier Doug Ford talked about the last time he saw McCallion.
I took her hand and offered her as much comfort as I could. I told her, I love you, Hazel.
Just about everyone here today had a story about how Hazel McCallion impacted their life in some way, including the Prime Minister, who shared a story about ziplining with McCallion.
15 years ago, on that trip to Italy with Sophie, I ran into Hazel and joined her on one of the longest, highest, and fastest zip lines in the world. Then in her late 80s, Hazel was not just the oldest elected official to ever do the zip line, she was one of the oldest people, period.
McCallion was first elected mayor of Mississauga in 1978. She would remain in office for 36 years before retiring in 2014. But even after leaving, current Mayor Bonnie Crombie says she was always available to lend a hand.
I always knew she was at the other end of the phone in case I needed a helping hand or some guidance. I'm a little bit emotional knowing that she won't be there at the end of the line for me to call to have breakfast with at Bobby's Hideaway or the Orchard where we used to meet.
McCallion was 101 years old when she died on January 29th. Today would have been her 102nd birthday. Greg Ross, CBC News, Mississauga.
Meteorologist Colette Kennedy joins us now for a first look at the forecast. It was certainly a mild Valentine's Day. Did we break any records?
Yeah, it was record-breaking, in fact. And, you know, yesterday we had many records broken again today. But what's kind of interesting is the record for today at Pearson was 8 degrees and we were up to 9. So we just broke that. But tomorrow's record goes up to, it's just over 12. And we're still going to break that one quite likely. So that tells you what's happening. Yeah, the heat's going to be building in even further for mid-February. But what's coming along with that? A few things. First of all, through the overnight hours, we will have some rain showers developing. Now, they will be intermittent in nature. Could have some wet roadways for tomorrow morning's commute, but it's really going to be an off and on kind of thing. And I am expecting that as we get into the afternoon, we'll actually see that dying off and drying out and get into some clearing. So able to enjoy the warmer temperatures. What may make it a little more difficult, though, going to be those winds that we'll be experiencing. So there is a special weather statement. We'll take a look at that in a little further detail coming up in the next weather segment. But just know that some of the wind gusts will be 70, even 80 kilometers an hour, generally from the south to southwest on Wednesday. It is going to push that temperature up, but it's also a little bit more difficult to contend with. And there's a look, by the way, at that record. 1954, I think we're likely going to beat that one too, Talia.
Thanks, Colette. 3 people are dead following a high-speed crash on the 427. Police say a BMW was speeding down an off-ramp when the driver lost control. The vehicle went airborne and was engulfed in flames. Late this afternoon, police saying all 4 occupants of the car were in Toronto on study permits from Bangladesh. Ali Shiasal reports.
It was a horrific scene, a massive scene.
OPP Sergeant Carrie Schmidt describes the fatal trajectory of the black BMW that came barreling down the Dundas off-ramp just before midnight last night.
As the vehicle, came down Highway 427 southbound around that Dundas ramp, it's a hard turn to the right. The vehicle ramped up over the concrete wall, hit the ditch embankment, and was then launched into the air, colliding into a wall beside it. That vehicle then was redirected back onto the ground.
The car was crumpled. 2 occupants sitting in the back seat were pronounced dead on scene. The female front passenger, along with the driver, were rushed to hospital after being extricated from the wreckage. The driver remains in critical condition. The passenger died. This kind of carnage can only be caused by one thing: speed.
You can only get that when there's a significant amount of energy and momentum.
Motor vehicle fatalities are up across the board in the last 2 years, from 315 deaths to 359 people dying in crashes in 2022. And speed is one of the leading causes.
Speeding historically has been the #1 killer, and that is something that it looks like was a factor in this collision as well.
The collision reconstruction team is working to piece together what happened, and they believe they can rule out intoxication, but other than that,
unfortunately, we do not have the witnesses to speak to inside the vehicle because of the injuries and the fatalities.
3 lives were lost in this crash, and potentially a 4th, which continues the traffic fatality trend into 2023.
These instances are always preventable.
100%, and that's what we continue to advocate for and remind drivers that their own safety security is their responsibility. But even as a passenger, you need to make your voice known. If you're in a vehicle and the driver is behaving in a way that they should not be, please voice your concerns, because it's your own personal safety at risk as well.
Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
Coming up, a new campaign is encouraging Black girls and women to make use of their time at the salon by picking up a book while they're in the chair.
This will be a space where not only are you getting your hair done to look beautiful, but you're enhancing your knowledge. You are stimulating your mind through some of the books that you're reading.
When we come back, we'll tell you all about the Beauty and Brains campaign and why it's resonating with both clients and hairstylists. Welcome back. A new campaign that launched during Black History Month aims to create a safe space for Black women to share ideas and also boost literacy. Beauty and Brains encourages women to read while spending time in places like hair and nail salons. Take a look.
This is one of my favorite, Heart and Hustle.
Mame Dahir has always loved to read. When she thought about how and where she could share that with her own community, a certain space came to mind.
The salon is, I would say, for many Black people, that's our safe space.
Through her organization, the Power of Love Foundation Canada, Dahir launched a campaign called Beauty and Brains. It's a book club that encourages women to read while they're in salons.
Your self-esteem is boosted, and also in addition to that, most of us spend hours, on average of 2 to even sometimes 8 hours in the salon. So this will be a space where not only are you getting your hair done to look beautiful, but you're enhancing your knowledge. You are stimulating your mind through some of the books that you're reading.
This 1 adult out of 5 that might have some difficulty with reading and writing might not feel 100% comfortable in a very structured, academic environment. So any occasion where people gather and can, read, help each other, learn and read together is for sure going to have a lot of success, especially with that group of our population that would benefit from improving their reading and writing skills.
It's an idea that's resonating with both clients and hairstylists, especially for those trying to spend less time scrolling through social media.
Reading a book while getting my hair done seems more productive, so that I can probably get some reading out of the way, enhance my vocabulary skills, and also my literacy skills, and as well as learn new things and be unplugged from my phone.
I thought it was an amazing idea. I think we need more of this in our community. I myself am an avid reader, so it's a great conversation piece to have between me and my client, and I get interested in what my clients are reading as well.
That's exactly what Dahir wants to see. While Beauty and Brains was launched within her organization, the hope is that it spreads to salons across the GTA and beyond.
My dream scenario would be even us as a team booking a hair salon one day, all of us going there, having our books to read while the hairstylist is doing our hair, and probably after we have a discussion on how the book went, what we think we took from that book, and I think it will be very empowering for us.
You're looking at a live shot of the Toronto skyline, mainly cloudy and sitting at around 3 degrees after a warm and sunny winter day. Colette's back after the break with a look at your extended forecast. Stay with us. Back now with our extended forecast, and Colette, you mentioned we'll get a bit more of that mild weather, but there will be some strong winds that come with it.
Yeah, so some windy conditions to contend with. I mean, the kind of winds that really can blow things around, objects around, also difficult for a high-profile vehicle. So something certainly to be aware of. And I'll tell you, those beginning to really kick up overnight tonight for southwestern Ontario, but more as we get towards the Golden Horseshoe. It's as we go into Wednesday morning, and then really all around, continuing through the day into the afternoon and even the evening hours before they start to wind down a little bit. So those wind gusts 70 to 80 kilometers an hour. So this is a special weather statement that has been issued from Environment Canada. Now we have even milder air for tomorrow. The temperature is even warmer than the record-breaking temperatures today. But we also have to add in some of these rain showers. So beginning through the overnight, through the Windsor area, and then eventually even through the overnight hours, pushing at least one band goes through the GTA. And then we get breaks and then another band. And that's how it's going to be, sort of off and on with some wet conditions. I do anticipate, though, that towards the lunch hour, you'll be peeling out of this and getting some sunny breaks coming in for southwestern Ontario. And I think in the later afternoon, although there may still be a few isolated showers hanging around, we're probably going to get a bit of clearing too. And that's when the temperature will soar that little bit further once we get some of that sun kind of peeking through, along with that flow coming from the south to southwest. So there may be pockets or times when you could get out of the wind that it'll actually be dry later in the day, and you can enjoy that there. Thursday starts off dry, much of the day is, but never mind as we get into the afternoon, evening hours. We're talking about colder air that's going to come in, especially Thursday night into Friday. So not only are we looking at rain, but changing to a mix. Perhaps some freezing rain could be extensive, and then a little bit of light wet snow on the back end of that. Just to look at those winds and how strong they will be in some of those gusts as I take you through the day on Wednesday. Be prepared not only for that, but they're going to be kicking up Thursday night into Friday again as well. The overnight temperature is really going to be seeing some changes. In many cases, we're going to hit that low early and then see the temperature rising towards the morning hours and getting warmer. The high for Pearson, 14 degrees for tomorrow, and then you see that transition on Thursday and then Friday. Again, looking out Thursday night into Friday morning for that risk that we could have some slippery roadways, Talia.
Thanks, Colette. Finally tonight, a British widower has spent decades creating a remarkable and touching Valentine's tribute to his late wife. Farmer Winston House started creating this heart-shaped meadow shortly after his wife Janet died in 1995. He planted thousands of oak trees in a 2.5-hectare pasture on his farm in southwest England. The meadow can't be seen from the road, and it was a family secret for years until a hot air balloon pilot drifted over it and snapped a picture. The tip of the heart points towards his wife's childhood home. They were married for 33 years. And that's our show for you tonight. Thanks so much for watching. Maribel Tarouk has your next local newscast tomorrow at 6. And we'll leave you tonight with a look at our Toronto Blue Jays kicking off the 2023 season. The Jays are in Florida for spring training, getting in the batting cage and taking to the field. Their first preseason game against Pittsburgh goes a week Saturday, with the season officially kicking off on March 30th. Have a great night, everyone.